Jeremy Swayman signs an 8-year contract with the Boston Bruins. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Bleacher Report. My name is John Viveiros, host of Hot Take Hockey and host here on Bleacher Report. Thank you so much for joining this breaking news reaction video live stream. However you're watching, if you're watching live, you're watching after the fact. Jeremy Swayman into the Boston Bruins drama is over. He's locked in for an 8-year contract, and this was a situation that, and I think a lot of fans are going to review this whole process. And as we're in October now, this contract could have been signed like a day or two into free agency. I think both sides would have been happy. But unfortunately, in contract negotiations, everyone is playing a bit of chicken. Everyone's seeing how far the other side will go. And that's what happened here. I mean, Jeremy Swayman wanted to set a new mark for goalies. And unfortunately for him, he didn't get to maybe a point he wanted. But at the same time, I think this proves that he all along wanted to be a Boston Bruin, because when you look at contracts around the league, whether it's the current contract of Sergei Bobrovsky or the upcoming contract of Igor Shesterkin, those contracts, you're getting into the 10 million category where Carey Price, that didn't really work out, right? So for goaltending, arguably the more important position in terms of winning a Stanley Cup, if you don't have the goalie, you're likely not winning, or at least a goalie that steps up at the right time. So there's always that debate of, okay, if you have a couple goalies, if you have a solid tandem, can you go far because you have a 1-2 punch? If one doesn't work out, the next is a man up. The Boston Bruins had that. They had Jeremy Swayman and the Linus Ullmark. And then, of course, the Boston Bruins trade Ullmark to the Ottawa Senators before Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. And then the offseason comes around and Jeremy Swayman has all the leverage. So on the other side, the Boston Bruins definitely wanted this to be a lower number. How low? I'm not sure. But to the point where Cam Neely goes publicly and goes, there are 64 reasons for Jeremy Swayman to sign with the Boston Bruins on a long-term deal. Well, folks, there are now 66 million reasons why Jeremy Swayman signed long-term with the Boston Bruins, because Jeremy Swayman's contract is $8.25 million per year over an 8-year term. That totals to $66 million, $2 million more than the reported from Cam Neely, $64 million. So we're going to go over all of it. We're going to go how this impacts the Boston Bruins specifically. We're going to go over how this impacts the league and maybe a domino effect on other goaltenders and their negotiations. As I just said, Igor Shesterkin being one of them. And then, of course, other news that could go down today, as tomorrow is NHL teams' final opportunity and frankly the deadline to submit waiver and roster for the season and being cap compliant. So the Boston Bruins clearly wanted to get this done prior to that deadline and prior to the season. And the season opens up this upcoming week. Officially, I would say, I mean, the New Jersey Devils and Buffalo Sabres just played 2 games overseas in Prague. New Jersey taking both those games. But of course, in terms of hockey in North America, NHL regular season games, that begins this upcoming week. So let's go through it. I think it's pretty cool to see kind of the reactions though, too, because I think when you look at it specifically on the Swayman, like you search up Swayman on X, the reactions are kind of funny. So if we look at this here, BR on ice on it, Swayman signed a contract. You go down, the reaction already coming in. This one's kind of a cool point. So happy I don't need to convince myself the Bruins can win the cup without Swayman. To be clear, I could and would have. Just happy I don't need to. That's the perspective here. I'm pretty on the Boston Bruins as a roster. And I think that when you have Jeremy Swayman, a goalie like Swayman on the rise, yeah, he hasn't played over 150 NHL games. Yeah, he had to split time with Ullmark, and we really don't know what it looks like as Swayman as just the sole goalie. But you know what? He has Korpisalo now, and I think when Bruins fans look at that result the other night against the LA Kings, losing 4-1, it's preseason. But Korpisalo, did he show great? Not really. But at the end of the day, I think you're only expecting about 25 to 30 games from the guy. You're expecting the 50-plus games from Jeremy Swayman. There's no doubt about that. I think Swayman could definitely be in that category, depending on how Korpisalo plays, being in that like Hellebuck category, which is 60-plus games. Do you want that from Swayman? Maybe not, but he's capable of doing that. So I do want to look at this also, Boston Bruins, again, talking about social media and talking about how you can get fans' attention. This part was pretty funny. If you guys didn't see the Bruins, what they posted prior to the Swayman announcement, I thought this was pretty funny. You don't really need the volume on this, but this is pretty funny. So Swayman pulling in. It's a good way to announce it. After all the drama, Cam Neely going public, Louis Gross, agent of Jeremy Swayman, going public. Like, if you're a Bruins fan, it went from a potential nightmare to like humor like this. It could be way worse. It could have been way worse. And the wink there from Jeremy Swayman, because again, using a Leaf reference here, I go to what happened with Nylander and same agent as Jeremy Swayman, Louis Gross, taking it all the way to that December deadline. I talked about that on my last Bleacher Report. Like, that scenario is crazy because Louis Gross, it's kind of like he learned his lesson here, and the Bruins also gave in a little bit. And then, of course, the Bruins announced the Sway is signed. And then Jeremy Swayman he is back. And then right to work. So that's on the Bruins page this Sunday morning. Everything towards Jeremy Swayman. So if you're a Bruins fan, you're happy. I do want to look at the depth chart of the Boston Bruins because I think that's now important. And I think when you talk about what the Bruins are going to do this year, I was very high on the Boston Bruins out of the offseason, expecting that they were going to sign Swayman pretty soon. Of course, that didn't happen. But when I look at the perspective of, okay, you brought in Nikita Zadorov. That's some huge size and a completion of your defense group. You brought in Elias Lindholm, the guy you were missing in terms of a number one center. And guys, make sure you get in the live chat. I know a lot of people have their opinions. Let us know what you think about the Swayman contract and the Boston Bruins going into the season. I really think they're complete now. Like, I think Korpisalo can be a really good, capable backup goalie in this league, and even maybe a 1B situation, depending on his confidence. And then on top of that, you have, in my opinion, a top 10 starter in the league in Jeremy Swayman. I think Swayman showed that he actually has that clutch factor as well, which is a huge, huge perspective. So I'm going to go over the Bruins lineup here, and this was as of September 29th, so about a week ago, and now how it looks different or potentially the impact with Swayman. So we'll pull this up. Jim McBride, Boston Globe. So this was the practice lines from a week ago, and it stayed pretty similar. So Zacha, Lindholm, Pasternak, that's the lineup we're expecting. Marchand, Coyle, Geeky, Frederick, Poitras, and Tyler Johnson. We're expecting an official sign there, most likely, and Kaslik, Koepke, and Beecher. So that's been kind of a battle there. Cole Koepke and John Beecher was playing in the playoffs last year for Boston. But the defense has been no debate for me. Like, Witherspoon and Sweezy are going to be the 7-8. But Hampus Lindholm and Elias Lindholm on the same team here. Hampus Lindholm with McAvoy on that top pair. You got Mason Lohrei with Brandon Carlo, and then Nikita Zadorov with Andrew Peeke. So now Korpisalo is going to slide as the backup, and then you're going to have your starter in Swayman. So huge perspective for the Boston Bruins, and I think just huge perspective for the Atlantic Division, as a lot of my analysis and a lot of fans and different analysts out there in around hockey right now, like, their perspective, and it's all about perspective, folks, was that, okay, the Atlantic Division could be for the taking depending on Florida Panthers. They just won a Stanley Cup. They had a short summer. Are they going to be tired? Are they going to have a Stanley Cup hangover? The Boston Bruins, no Jeremy Swayman. Of course, that's changing now. The Tampa Bay Lightning, no Steven Stamkos, no leadership. The Toronto Maple Leafs, we know it's always a wild card with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So my conversation was,